I'm going to return to the Middle East now. And Rishi Sunak has finally spoken to Benjamin Netanyahu following the Iranian drone attack at the weekend, warning that a retaliation would deepen insecurity in the Middle East.
Well, it comes as the EU and US say that they are looking at plans to impose further sanctions on Iran.
Not sure that'll work, but joining us now is the Israel's former Minister of Justice and Peace negotiator, Dr Yossin Beilin. Dr Yossi, a very good morning. Thank you for joining us. Let's just talk about the impact from your point of view about what happened at the weekend. I'm interested, I said this yesterday, but to speak to you is great. Netanyahu, of course, we all know what happened in October, and it was appalling, and Israel had its right to go after Hamas. Iran getting involved, whether it's a show of strength or to its allies, the Houthis and the other rebels in that area. Netanyahu's position has been strengthened inside Israel, I would imagine, after these attacks. Would that be a fair comment? And do you believe that he will retaliate?
I don't know. I believe that in many ways the retaliation took place in the attack itself. I mean, the Iranians proved their weakness by using hundreds and hundreds of missiles, and eventually nobody was killed, thanks heaven, and the coalition led by the United States and Britain and other countries, with Israel, of course, in the middle, in the center, proved its strength and its ability to act in coordination. And personally, I don't see any reason to continue this vicious circle with Iran, but it is an opportunity to think about what is happening with Iran. It's a rogue country and should be related to in that way. And the world, the free world, should strengthen its sanctions against Iran.
What I meant was, just to qualify, was that there were murmurings across, I think, the world about Netanyahu and Israel and some of what people were seeing in Gaza, and people were saying, should we be sending weapons? Just hear me out. What I'm saying is the attack has strengthened the global support for Netanyahu, as you quite rightly say, and points a finger at that rogue state. My next question is pretty obvious. I'm sure Nick was going to probably ask it. Are sanctions going to make any difference to a terror regime like Iran?
Yes. Yes, because even such a regime has a public opinion. And if you saw what happened on Saturday when the Iranians threatened to attack Israel, in Tehran, there were endless queues for Gaza line. And they are not very happy under this Ayatollah lunatic regime. And I think that sanctions is part of the thing. I mean, they should understand that they are a pariah country. And you cannot be a pariah country like North Korea if you want to be part of this world.
And what kind of sanctions are we talking about here, Dr Yossi? What kind of sanctions could the UK impose on Iran?
I'm not a specialist on this, and I don't want to get into details.
Absolutely, no problem.
Because I know, but because I don't know.
I will move on to another question then. We know that overnight, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has spoken with Netanyahu about those attacks in Iran, from Iran over the weekend. Why do you think it has taken so long for Netanyahu to take a phone call from Rishi Sunak? And do you think that this speaks volumes about our relationship with Israel and how important Israel deemed the UK to be?
It doesn't speak volumes about the relations between Great Britain and Israel. It speaks volumes about a person who shouldn't have been a prime minister of Israel, at least not since October the 7th. He should have resigned on that day, on that horrible Saturday. He didn't do that. He is still the prime minister. He has a coalition with lunatics, really lunatics. We never had such people, even under rightist government in the past. And they are pushing Israel like in a kindergarten to behave, by retaliations and warning and things like that. And you cannot continue and sit down if you are not acting against your enemy, and obvious kindergarten slogans. And that is bad news for Israel. I mean, if the Prime Minister of Britain is calling him, he should answer. That's it.
Dr Yossi, it's not that I disagree with you. I just want to take us back to the sanctions comment from before. And you say you don't know the sanctions, and neither do I. We're not experts in that field. But I would disagree with you and say this. We can levy sanctions. It's not going to stop Iran doing business with Russia and China, part of that three-country axis that I think the rest of the world needs to sit up and take notice of. I, by the way, share your feelings about Netanyahu. I think that if it wasn't for the war, he wouldn't be there. And what I was trying to say in my first question was, when I suggested that the Iranian attack strengthened his position, if there was no war, Netanyahu wouldn't be there. That's a fact to the Israeli people. But I think Iran, right, you could talk about the kindergarten. I don't think the axis between Iran, Russia and China is anything to do with kindergarten. I think the world needs to watch out, because I think those three are extremely powerful and extremely dangerous.
No, the kindergarten is the Israeli government, not this axis. I don't believe that the main issue is the sanctions against Iran. The fact that Iran is a member of the World Club is very problematic. That people are going to Iran, returning from Iran, have business with Iran. That's annoys me. But I think that what we have to do, rather than retaliate, is to strengthen the new coalition, which demonstrated its power on Saturday, and have a real security coalition in our part of the world, a security of normal people, normal governments who are there against Iran and its allies. And we have to go for peace. And the United States and Britain and other countries should demand, for the sake of Israel, to try and begin talking with the PLO, with the Palestinian Authority, with those pragmatic Palestinians, not Hamas, who want peace. Rather than that, Netanyahu strengthened Hamas for years and years, mainly because Hamas didn't want anything from us, just to kill us. Yeah. And it did not demand a Palestinian state.
I think that's a really interesting point, because I think when the world saw the atrocities on October the 7th, and we've all got Jewish friends, we were appalled by it, and we understood that right. I mean, I've sat here and listened to all sorts of people, Dr Yossi, talk about a ceasefire, and I keep saying the same thing. Netanyahu, I don't believe, and Hamas, I certainly don't believe, want a ceasefire, so the world can jump up and down. You might be right that peace, hopefully somewhere down the line, but you've got people at the moment who have conflicted interests, and when war's involved, that's a nasty, nasty ending, and always.
Dr Yossi, is it the case, obviously you're a peace negotiator and initiator of the Oslo Accords. We know that overnight Israel, the Israeli government, have said that actually to not take any action against Iran could prove to be escalatory in terms of retaliation attacks from them. Do you agree with that?
Of course not. I mean, I think that there is much strength in the efforts not to retaliate, not to do the spontaneous thing that is expected of you, especially if there is no need. I mean, after October the 7th, it was impossible not to act and not to go to war against Hamas in order to put an end to their governance of Gaza. They should never return to be the government of Gaza. This is a cause. There is no cause of retaliating against Iran. And there are other things that we have to do. We have to get back the kidnapped people. We have the hostages, babies of 2 years. I mean, it's crazy. It's inconceivable. People over 80 who are held by these lunatics in Hamas. We have to put an end to the war in the north with the help of the superpowers, who will tell the Hezbollah or the very weak, of course, Lebanese government, stop it. And we have to sit together and talk peace. This is what we have to do. Retaliation, okay. Even if there is a retaliation, it will not stop anything, regretfully.
Very true.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr Yossin Beilin, Israel's former Minister of Justice and Peace Negotiator.